Well, yeah, the first 2 shots are the Mexico border and then an RV.
Hi, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devon Decker, and joining me, my host companion, Sejan Sarowick. And
You started that recording mid your own sentence. You have no excuse there.
Oh, I understand. I was gonna... Okay, so here's the thing. I hit the record button. The fact of the matter is, we are in need of a new computer. And if we were like big popular streamers or something, this is where the donation marathon would start. And like, we're going to be Say reporting until we raise $20,000 to finally outfit the studio with everything we need. We're not going to do that. We're not actually going to do
a new computer, and we also need to get one of those Morgan Freeman devices from The Dark Knight so we can listen in on everything everyone's saying.
Is it The Dark Knight? It is The Dark Knight, not The Dark Knight Rises, right?
No, it's The Dark Knight where he reveals that he has that, and Lucius makes him shut it down.
And Lucius is like, it's too much power for one man to have. I don't know what. That's not my Morgan Freeman voice.
Nor do I believe that that's like the like true line of that scene. But yeah, okay.
But he says something like that. He says it's too much power for one man.
There. Yes,
like
sentiment is there. Is definitely there. Yes.
But no. If we were going to do that $20,000, we'd buy a new computer with like 1,000 of that, and the rest, that's the Say Report retirement fund. Because I've been lying about your 401k this whole time, CJ.
That's okay. I don't need the big league listening in machine. Well, can we at least get one computer that just listens in on Morgan Freeman?
I think that's too much power for one man. Especially, Morgan Freeman got, like, Me Too'd, right? Or it's one of those situations where Morgan Freeman, I think it happened when I was at sea, but then when he comes up, like, with certain people, they're like, oh, no, Morgan Freeman, he's bad now. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I missed that.
I don't know, man. I am not aware of anything, and I'm not going to speak on anything that gets recorded on tape against a person when I'm not aware of what's happening.
All right, yeah, I don't know. It's one of those situations.
This is how fires start.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't want to. I don't know anything. But there are people who bring up that something happened with Morgan Freeman. I'm like, oh, I don't remember hearing about that. So I try to keep my Morgan Freeman interactions to a minimum. Of course, I say that with our October very special episode, Visions from the Future, being the bucket list. So, who knows? I guess next episode on the Say Report, I'm going to have more information about Morgan Freeman. And it will be because I'm going to spend some money on a computer device that always listens in on Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, so the only thing I can find is that there was some controversy with Morgan Freeman at one point where he was accused of inappropriate behavior on the set of Now You See Me. That inappropriate behavior apparently comes down to he requested that women as extras, not wear short skirts and not wear tight tops. That is about the bearing on what I can get on what would happen to him in his Me Too. So, yes, definitely harassment. This is good. But of all the things Morgan Freeman got accused of was telling people to put more clothes on.
Yeah, that's one of those things that could really be read on two different levels.
I mean, it's more like old man energy, right? Like that, like it doesn't feel like sexual harassment so much as just like age harassment. Like the damn kids need to put more clothes on.
What if it's one of those situations where the actor's like, all right, I go to a lot of magic shows. People are wearing longer skirts and looser tops. People don't go to magic shows like sausages. They want to be free at a magic show.
I've never been to a Chris Angel show, so.
Well, the problem with the Chris Angel show is I go in loose clothes and then I just wind up so turgid it looks hyper tight. That's right. I used turgid in a sentence. In fact, I'm so upset because the name of this episode was The Portal Report. But I'm calling it the Turgid Report so that we never have to do another episode called it, and then maybe I never have to say turgid again. Also, if there was a secret word this week, I probably would have been turgid.
It would have been turgid, yes. And I would have gotten my $2. I didn't say it.
All right. So we've changed the title from The Portal Report, which is good because that means we get to save that for a later thing, but in a rare Say Report occasion, like call out what is that? Begin to Begin. There's a song. There's like some polka song that's like call out the rabble. I don't know what's happening. What's happening?
I don't know. You started singing polka and tried to accuse Morgan Freeman of being Me Too.
I did not try to accuse it. I say that people bring it up, and I didn't know the story. So I'm happy that in this episode of the Say Report, we found an answer to that.
We're just asking questions.
I mean, it's more than they're doing at the January 6th committees right now.
Oh,
they get a whole freaking month off. Oh yeah, so we'll be back to this in September.
I mean, it's for them to do more work with the answers that they got from these hearings, right? Like, you get that it's like they're not going on recess.
Well, it is the usual break that Congress gets to take,
right? Like, but.
I do hope that rather than playing through Stray and getting ready for the God of War
cosplay that you've started
I'm not
to wear.
wearing a Joe Rogan cosplay. It was one of those situations where they preempted all the shows on Friday night to say, this is what we have so far. We'll get back to it in September. And my first thought was, man, I would love just a month off paid. We don't get that, right? Do you get that at your job?
Yeah, I guess, but I guess the big thing that I'm having trouble here is you keep tying this to the January 6th committee, but then as you pointed out, this is just Congress's normal break. So like, yes, but this is a weird window to crawl through to get to this story.
Wow, way to talk about crawling through windows. Congress and January 6th. I think that's the trifecta. I don't know what we're doing. I had such a good intro prepared for this, and it all got thrown off because we were talking about Framed at the start of it, and the fact that Framed,
this all started because you started recording in the middle of us kind of still talking about Framed.
I thought it was good content. I thought it'd be solid content to discuss because we talked about like boss office game.
About it now?
I feel like it's gone off the rails just a little bit. But I'd like to talk about Framed briefly because we talked about all those other like movie trivia games last week. And I don't think we threw a lot of shade at Framed. And in true Say Report fashion, the response to that from the universe was to give us not necessarily a shitty week of Framed answers, but one of the first frames this week was Yellow Rocks.
Specifically Utah Desert Yellow Rocks, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember the movie that it ended up being, which for those that don't know, like the deserts of Utah have been used to film desert scenes since Hollywood like was incepted. Like Utah was the place to go for that and still is. So basically showing a picture of the Utah desert narrows it down none.
Yeah. And then the secondary one is this morning's, right? The one that we did this morning.
Yeah.
It was the Mexican border.
It's just a shot of the Mexican border.
And it's like,
yeah, I think if now I know what the movie was, if I went back knowing to like look for things, like I could wear Waldo some shit from that movie in that scene probably. But like without that context, like it's just a shot of the Mexican border.
The best part about it is we can say what the movie is because this doesn't release until tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, people still might. Oh,
and it goes away. It's not one of the. Yeah. Well, I think you can actually. No, Movie Doll is the one where you can go back and do earlier ones.
Yeah.
Framed does not have that.
So today's one is We're the Millers, right? And so like a shot of the Mexican border at the beginning is like kind of important to the plot of that movie. Like again, I can go back and in hindsight is 2020, right? Like knowing what the movie is, I can figure it out. But fuck me, what a weird
Mexican border. I'm just like, I'm gonna go with Sicario. Because maybe they're banking on you don't know the name Sicario.
But I will point out, I believe it was just yesterday, was Knives Out, and the very first shot that they give you is Chris Evans' forearm, and you can tell it's his forearm because of the sweater, which is like mentioned in the movie.
I could tell it was his forearm because of the Captain America shield.
Well, considering you didn't get it on one, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, wow, he's throwing shade at me, this guy.
And then there was
I guessed Civil War, Sejin. Because of the shield, the aforementioned Captain America shield.
But but then the whole point of the mug, it's also again pointed out in the movie when it's his house because it's the point where he's comforting Marta, I think is her name.
Yep.
At his chateau, and it's his whole thing about having his own space and being his own man, and that ends up being again plot significant. So it's really wild because like you get a shot like that has all of these kind of really specific clues in it, And then you get something like the one, and then you get this one today where it's just a shot of the mix, which for all intents and purposes could easily be stock footage. Like a ton of movies do this exact same shot with stock footage, so we have probably seen the same shot in multiple movies.
Well, like my mind jumped to Sicario because of the red car.
That was totally my number one pick, by the way.
Oh, good. I'm glad. So look at that. We matched, right? It's like the match game. We get extra bonus points.
What did you do for your second one?
My second one was We're the Millers. I got it in 2. So
nice with that. I was still kind of lost, and so I was trying to figure out if it was like one of the Hills Have Eyes or something like that. But
I mean, Mexican border RV, and then I was like, oh, it's We're the Millers. But then the third picture of Ed Helms with his killer whale.
Yeah, that was the shot for me. It was him in front of his tank.
Yeah. So it was beautiful. I mean, and the game's a lot of fun, but I do have to give Framed, and I don't know if it's done randomly from like a pool or anything like that, but having 2 semi-bullshit first shots of like, that could literally just be any movie. That's Utah desert, like throw a rock.
I mean, they do promise, to their credit, they do promise the idea is that it will be random frames. And I mean, and
that's
like,
random.
What are you going to do? Like, it is extremely random. I will give them that. No, the bigger thing for me is like, there's no larger meta to it, which, for good or for ill, like at least with like Wordle, like there is like something keeping track of your stats and like comparing them, and there's a way to like, and a lot of that also then led to them getting bought out and selling out, right, to New York Times. So maybe it's better that Frame just kind of does its own thing, but I do wish that there was some larger game going on that I could be playing because I do like it.
The other one that I've started to do, and this one just started, I think the 5th one launched today, it's called Plot Words, and it just gives you like descriptive words about the plot. So I'm going to tell you the second one. I'm going to start with the second one. I have these in my head.
Fuck yeah.
Okay.
I've always wanted this to become a gaming podcast. Let's do it.
Okay. So the first word for the plot is Italy.
Okay. Hold on. Italy. When in Rome.
Okay. The second word for the plot is Italian American.
Well, now, okay. I mean, is it The Godfather?
The third word for the plot is Cuba.
Wait, Italian American Cuba. Then it's definitely a mob story, right? Oh shit! Now I'm like intrigued. I don't know. Let's say, what's the Hayden Christensen one there? That's Romeo and Juliet with the pizza places.
What? I don't know. There's a Hayden Christensen that's Romeo and Juliet with pizza places. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it is tragically awful, actually. But no, I don't know. So if I was going to give a random guess on this one for right now, The Godfather 2.
And it's The Godfather 2.
Yeah, there you go.
Congratulations. All right, so now here's the third day. You ready for the third day?
Sure.
The first guess, the first plot word is Italy.
Is it? Okay. So is it just The Godfather?
It's just The Godfather. But I'm like, well, it can't be The Godfather after The Godfather Part 2, right? There wouldn't be that. But no, it was The Godfather. And so that's 5 in, and that's enjoyable. So like, recommend plot words. And the fun part about plot words is the amount of clues differs from day to day. So like sometimes it like, I think The Godfather Part 2 was 13 clues, and then The Godfather was just 9 clues. And then today's was 19 clues.
Oh boy, man.
So it's just kind of like a fun, that one is really interesting. The difference there though, because we do play a lot, like we do Framed, and Framed is one of those ones where you were given a choice, like there's a database that it's pulling from. Plot words, you have to know the title, and you have to know the proper spelling of the title.
Oh man.
So
yeah, it's the only thing about a lot of these is that they're using a lot of like I'm sure that there are only like 1 or 2 people building these things, right? And so they need to depend on kind of outside resources for their databases, their libraries and stuff, because they probably don't have a team of people that are sitting there and adding movies and checking them every day, right? I mean, first of all, how the hell is that website making any money besides, I guess, traffic, right? Is the only reason.
Well, one of them just got bought up by like a gaming collective.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, is that the point, dream, right? So... like with like the Wordle model, like the prime model for these like these web-based games now. I guess that was always kind of the deal with pop games and stuff like that getting big and stuff way back in the day. But
Jesus. BoringGames.com.
Yeah, right. Or addictive games got it getting bought up by Nickelodeon, I think,
Yep.
ended up like taking them over. Yeah, so like I guess this has always been the idea, right? Is like you put your thing out there, hopefully it catches on, somebody spends a bunch of money on it, and then you can just walk away. But anyway, yeah, so like because of that, the libraries that people are depending on are not always, well kept, shall we say.
Yeah.
And that's the only real like downside to him. But like for a thing that I do while I sit on the toilet every morning, like I'm down.
Yeah, it's a nice way to wake up. Is still like a little bit of trivia,
yeah.
And I save a couple for when I'm like bored and I'm like, oh, I can go do one of these little games today.
It's really wild. Like the ways that we talk about how in like video gaming with capital V, capital G, like how we've kind of lost kind of the lower tiers of that. Like either things are just like AAA games or they're trash, right? They get sent off to the indie pile, despite the fact that like they may be made by a major studio, but this has this has the appeal of this, I guess. So you're an independent game now. Like I don't even know the distinction there. Like what happened to it is what happened to that like mid-tier and true low-tier gaming stuff. That's all this, right? This is all like web app development and phone app development now.
Yeah, that's totally like I shared a game with you from the HMK this year that it didn't make it for this thing called Roll the Die. Have you played that game at all? That little like browser game that I sent to you?
So I did, and I enjoy the hell out of it. The problem is I'm also in the middle of another dice game right now, so I couldn't commit myself to 2 dice games still.
Yeah, I mean that game, it's only 15 levels, and then it's done because it's just a quick game. But I've like beaten it every day, and I've played with my strategy. That game's a lot of fun. I will cite Roll the Die as a good time. But before we go too much further down this road, because
maybe I finished it and didn't realize it. Then.
Yeah,
sorry,
it might have happened, right?
Yeah.
Because what are you playing, Dicey Dungeons?
Yeah, I'm still playing Dicey Dungeons. Man, I love that game, but the RNG on it has become literally like unfair, like just like not good. Like it is my biggest critique about that game is that you hit a late game point where the RNG does not. The RNG screws you no matter how good you're doing otherwise. There's like strategies in other levels that like, oh, the RNG sucks, but if I do this, this, and this, I can block myself and protect myself and do this. And in this level, like, oh, the RNG is actually not that bad because I'm just OP. Those are some of the funnest levels in that game. But then you just hit a couple of late episodes in that game where it's just like, no matter what equipment you have on you, no matter what protections you have in place, no matter what strategies you're planning on using, like the RNG just is just too random. Sometimes you breeze through levels, sometimes you get screwed on the first guy. It's not fun.
I will say that in Roll the Die, got to the final boss one time, and it came down to all I have to do is roll a 2 or higher, and I will beat him. And I rolled the 1. Crit fail, man, and it was.
But see, like that happening, right? Yeah, that happening once, and those chances are very good. 2 or higher. Like rolling a 1 is bad luck, but I wouldn't call that bad gameplay. Right?
No, it felt really excellent. And then I learned, yeah,
it's the opposite of that I'm dealing with in Dicey Dungeons now, where it feels like no matter what I roll, there's no chance I'm winning this one, so I'm screwed.
And then it made me actually look into a couple of items that I had been like brushing aside, because there's like a Stardust and some other thing like Pixie cream or some crazy word like that, and you can like apply that to your dice, and it will change the RNG from like the first one that you apply, and because they both do the same thing. You'll never roll lower than a 6, which is really interesting because like for the 4-sided die and the 6-sided die, that's a guaranteed crit roll. And then if you apply the next one, you'll never roll lower than a 13. So then up to a 12-sided die, because there's like an 8, a 10, and a 12, any of those are a guaranteed crit, which doubles that roll. Nice. So it really messes with how you're going to strategically approach it. And I appreciate that being part of the meta for the game. Yeah. And I really like that I was able to beat it without ever employing that. But now it's like, well, I'm never not going to take these items if they come up, because it just levels the playing field.
Yeah. So in addition to being a dice rolling game, Dicey Dungeons is also a deck building game, really.
Oh,
And so you start fresh every episode is what they call them. And when you go in, you're building a deck of attacks and moves. And depending on the build that you're getting, because you are building a deck, it also is going to depend on what you really want from the dice. So you may want a character that only rolls low. I have one character, the thief character, that every time I play with him, I try and build a deck where if I get ones and twos, I fucking own. And like then there's moves to like lower dice values, cut dice values in half, like all of that sort of stuff. And so like that's really cool. And the problem is that you get so caught up in that side of it that when you hit an episode where like they're just like, no, go fucking hard, and you're just like, shit, I haven't been doing that for 2 hours. I don't want to do that now. Like it gets really it gets really unfortunately difficult at some point, and not in a fun way. But I'm powering through, and they let you skip levels in a certain way, like you unlock more than one at a time. So like if you're really having a hard time on an episode, you can skip ahead, and I've done that. But now I want to go back and finish the ones that I've skipped, and that's just bumming me out that like I can't finish these last few things in this game that I've loved so much for the last month.
Yeah, but I get it. I mean, big changes to gameplay. That's one of the things that I have a lot of complaints about, but we'll get to that later on in the episode, because, as you know, this was originally called the Portal Report, and we were actually going to make good on a promise. It wasn't going to be another one of these say report promises, like we weren't going out for smokes and never coming back on this one. We played through Portal 2 co-op, and we're saving that for the last bit of the episode, right? So this is your little teaser that we are going to talk about our shared experience in Portal 2 co-op. And that's because I think we're going to need something to elevate us after we sink deep into the mire of the topic I really want to discuss this week. But before we get to that topic this week, after this lovely, like, pre-show, sort of like warm-up, cold open about dice rolling games, Chris Angel, and the like, let's talk about something not related to video games. Let's give it like 15 to 20 minutes non-video game before we go hard on video games.
Sure.
So what have you been up to this week that is not gaming related?
Well, as you know, Devon, the streaming site Netflix, on its last legs, in its death knell, is letting out a giant death rattle and releasing at least 10 different projects a month for the next foreseeable future. They just had a huge fucking drop this week, right? And this is not to sit here and bow down at the altar of Netflix. Like, they definitely have their problems, and I don't love everything that they've dropped this week alone. But the two big ones that I had to dive into this week were Phasar. I think I'm saying that right. I always want to call it Fazbear, which is like a Friday Nights at Freddy's thing, and I don't know why they named it Phasar. But and then the other thing is Resident Evil.
Well, I don't think Resident Evil can be talked about because it's technically video games. I kid.
The through line for both of them is Lance Reddick.
Nice.
So first of all I will say about Phasar is that like I like it is a Mako and Aguin, right? Those are the two guys that did Brickleberry and Paradise PD. Yeah. So it's their next project for Netflix. They must have signed some deal with the Netflix devil, right? Where they just get to do whatever the fuck they want until they die. They just have to release it on Netflix.
First appearance of the Netflix devil, come to find out, was in Dirty Work. I think everybody got the joke. Continue.
And then sorry, I had to put my cough button on and laugh hilariously at the joke. So it is it feels like it's a direct answer to a lot of the stuff that's going on with He-Man on Netflix right now, and how it's all kind of, I mean, to be frank, falling on its face, right? Like, even as somebody that really liked the Masters of the Universe reboot with Sarah Michelle Gellar there and stuff like that, like, they got their one season, they told their story. Supposedly there's more of that coming still, but
they signed Shatner. Because Kirk's going to get to meet Luke Skywalker, has been the big talk about San Diego Comic-Con, which I think we have to give 10 minutes to, because thoughts. So like so that, but let's, can I ask you to avoid any deeper stuff about Phasar, with the promise that I will watch it this week, and then we can actually talk about it next episode. because you've piqued my interest, is what I want to say.
To that point, like that one, but then the other He-Man show that they did, which was the more kid-focused one, shall we say, right? Which was the other Masters of the Universe one that they did. Again, probably going to get 5 seasons. I like the same way that Jurassic Park Cretaceous Camp is getting its 5th season somehow. But like, as far as those two go in terms of pleasing their audiences, not exactly stellar hits by all accounts. Again, I will point out that I enjoy the hell out of them, but it is just weird, it is just not firing on all cylinders for everybody. So with that in mind, like, Phasar is definitely seems like it's just basically just like, yeah, fuck those shows, right? And like, I kind of on board with some of the stuff that they're doing, a lot of the ways that like Paradise PD, they're basically like, fuck the police in that show, but there's also other shit going on, right? So like, I don't know. I really want other people to check it out because I'm curious to see if this is like one of those one-off, just one season things that Netflix does sometimes, or if this one catches on. Because Paradise PD ended up getting what, 3 seasons?
3 seasons. I still have to watch the 3rd one. I'm excited. Those first 2 wild. I watched and watched and watched.
The 3rd one is the Armageddon one.
Yeah, based wild. On the ending of the 2nd one, yeah. So I will definitely try to check out the 3rd season of Paradise PD, but I will make the promise, solemn vow to you right now to get through Phasar before our next episode.
And so that's where the Lance Reddick like trail starts, right? Is Paradise PD, and he plays the cop with big balls on that, and then he's a main character in the new show. And so, but interestingly enough, it's not the only Netflix show he's the main character of this time around. Resident Evil dropped. They did that thing where Netflix is like, we're doing a Resident Evil show, it's happening, and then got real quiet, and then all of a sudden this week all 8 episodes just dropped. And so I've gotten through the first half of the series. It's so Resident Evil, there are 2 wolves in Resident Evil. Resident Evil is a game. Like, Resident Evil is a franchise that has always tried to serve 2 masters. There has always been the original concept of it being these really like solitary horror games, right? Like, not only are like zombies the threat, not only are monsters the threat, but there is also the larger part of those games is solitude. It's the parts where you're alone and nothing's happening that scare you the most sometimes in those games, right? And then over the years, that original, and I'm talking about just the video game series at the moment, that evolved into a little bit more of like an action-based, but still pretty horrific game. The horror movies in general, like the horror world, kind of went through that same arc, right? And a lot of people, for good or for ill, like gave shit to the second half, are bored by the first. Then there's like the re-releases that have kind of brought everybody together. Resident Evil has just like always kind of been in this conversation of what kind of horror do we want to be, right? The show is like mired in that, because the way that it's done is dual narratives. It shows the year 2038, I think, is the future year, and then 2022 is the main year. And so there is 16 years has passed between the two, 15 to 17.
2022, perfect year for like a virus story.
Well, they don't even, they say COVID. They bring it. They talk about it, like not every episode, but like when somebody talks about like, wait, is this like, and somebody goes, no, it's not COVID. Like, it's basically like the line, right? And so in that, the 2022 one storyline is that more like they've moved into a new home, things are not quite right, dad works for a creepy company, like that, like the solitary, like kids alone and feeling isolated shit, like that is all that one. And then the 2038 storyline is the big, like, the whole world has gone to shit and we have to fight zombies everywhere we go, and like, let's get into the big tank and drive over them type shit, right? Like, so in that, there is a real risk of like just like a whiplash, right? And I will give the show credit in that I think they do a really good job balancing those two stories. It makes sense for the story that they're creating. I think that there's been some real negative reactions to this show in that it is clearly not original timeline Resident Evil, but it is trying to pull from original timeline Resident Evil. And here's the problem that I have with the fan base. If anything comes out that is deviates from the original plot in any way, all they ever do is give it shit. Like, look at all of the Resident Evil films and the ways that, especially the later ones, caught a lot of crap from quote unquote true fans, right? And then, you know, in the games themselves, kind of like giving them shit up until like 7, all of a sudden, and 8 kind of like brought them back to like doing these isolated stories, and people like celebrated that, right? But the problem is that then you look at something like Welcome to Raccoon City, the movie that came out last year, and that doesn't do well either. And the big complaint about that movie from the audience, from the true fans, is, oh, this is just a highlight reel. It's just all of the stuff from the games. Like, there's nothing interesting tying them together or anything like that. It's just like, well, where what is it, right? And so this show is trying its fucking damnedest to do both of those things, to introduce new concepts and new thoughts, but then also bring in and you know, remind people that like we didn't forget about what happened in the past. So like talking about variations on viruses, specific characters that show up, like all of this shit happens, but it's not the ways in which you remember it. And people are just talking about how it pays no attention to the gaming franchise, how it doesn't feel like this. Also, I'm not even going to get into the bullshit about quote unquote wokeness of the show just because they dared to have African Americans in these stories finally, and not just as like fodder in Resident Evil 5.
Or like, Marvin in Resident Evil 2. Like
yeah. So like there's a lot of wild shit going on in the show, in that it is trying to just make everybody happy, and it's not really succeeding in any particular way. Like there's no particular part of that show that I would be like, well, at least this has to make fans happy, right? Every time something happens, I'm just like, that's gonna be pissing somebody off. I am somebody that I am immersed in the Resident Evil like universe, lore, like games, books, manga, like I have all of this shit and I love all of it, knowing full well that none of it makes any sense together, including like in their own continuities. There are continuity errors within the games, within the movies, within the comics. Like shit will happen and you'll be like, but this person we know is like at Caliban Cove for this entire month, so that doesn't make sense that they'd be in Raccoon City. Like it doesn't matter. It doesn't fucking matter.
How far is Caliban Cove from Raccoon City? 2-hour drive?
The side of the world. That's the other big thing, is people talk about how these shows keep getting too big, or the movies, they always want to go worldwide and make it a worldwide thing. And it's like, yeah, just like the fucking games did eventually. Like when like not even eventually, like pretty quickly. Like with like Code Veronica and stuff like that, you learn about like it's just there's always
the problem with Code Veronica is like nobody's played it. That's the fact of the matter is nobody thinks about Code Veronica and the fact that it did go global in that game, because just nobody experienced it, which is a shame. As much as I'm excited that the next remake is going to be Resident Evil 4, so that like maybe I'll finally finish a Resident Evil 4 story, even though it will be very different, and I understand that from Go.
I don't think it's going to be as different as people are maybe freaking out about, but it'll be different enough that anybody that's played it before is going to be able to see things that are different. But I think you will get the gist of what Resident Evil 4 was. Don't worry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not nervous about it. I loved what they did with Resident Evil 3. I think that making it more isolated and making Nemesis a bigger threat when he did show up was really cool. But getting back to it, I would have loved a remake of Code Veronica, because I think the stuff that happens in it like it's an actual game. It's not just an expansion or anything like that. It built the world out in very important ways that were necessary for Resident Evil 4 to succeed. Like,
yes, isn't that the one with like Ashford and like the different? You go out to like the winter base and stuff like that.
Yep.
If I remember. Yeah. There's some really cool stuff in that one too. So, all of that pushed aside, that is the zeitgeist, that is the conversation. It is struggling as a show because I think it is trying to serve too many masters. It's trying to make too many people happy in too many places. That being said, I'm having a hell of a fucking time with that show. Like, going into it and like shit happening and wild stuff happening, it's like reading Flash Gordon and then seeing the Flash Gordon movie. Like, they're not the same thing, but both can be enjoyed. And there's something about the idea of time and space that allow us to enjoy things that are kind of off and silly. It feels like fans used to just be happy they were getting anything. Now it feels like fans are pissed that they don't get exactly what they want. I feel like that's probably an over-exaggeration, that it's always been that way. There have always been people that bitch about this stuff.
I mean, people were mad that Michael Keaton was Batman in 1980 when it was announced.
Exactly, right? Like there's this idea that it feels like this is a now thing, but this has probably always been the case with these communities. And I hope that anybody out there is when they are deciding to not see this stuff, it is because of something within themselves, not because of something that's coming from outside. Because the amount of shit being flung at this show that is more Netflix related than show related, more racism related than show related, more like uber fan unnecessarily like demanded, like there's the reveal of who is who in the show is fucking wild, and part of that is because they make some slight character changes in everything from race to tone. And so like there's just this idea of like, oh, I didn't expect that name to be dropped here because this person is acting a little differently, but motivations are actually pretty on point. Like there's wild shit going on in this show. And then add to all of that it's a Netflix show and with a bunch of money behind it. For all accounts, it's one of the more expensive ones that exists right now. I don't know if it's the most expensive, but there's definitely money behind it. So there's also just some really awesome shit going on with like big bugs and the zombie. Well, and the other big thing is that they are very clear that while zombies is an okay term within the universe for them, what's going on is that they're humans degenerating, right? Which in the games becomes more important later on in the series, that like it's all about the ways in which the brain is affected, and that's why there's different variations and shit like that. And so in the first couple of games they're like zombies, and then eventually they're just like, oh, T-virus carriers. In this show they call them zeros. They've kind of explained the term enough to make it make sense, but yeah, that's like, it's weird.
Zero brain activity.
No, it's that they were at that they
were at ground zero.
They are considered ground zero for the first formation of the T-virus. Gotcha. From them, they are carriers, and then other things it will mutate in, but these particular beings that doesn't. It just is the T-virus, so they're considered zeros, ground zeros. It's like a really weird explanation to use a term nobody else has used before.
I really like it. It's a good explanation. That works for me as somebody who's not watched the show yet, but I'm interested. I'm mad at you though, like just small mad, like not it. You've given me so many beautiful segue points in this myriad lecture that you've been giving, and I don't know which one to latch on to.
Well, let me say it this way. Let me wrap it up this way. I want people to give this a shot despite what they hear. That's what I will say.
Cool. I like that. I dig that. I guess first thing I want to check it is how we doing on making Welcome to Raccoon City the next Rocky Horror Picture Show cult movie.
We got to get it into a theater that doesn't mind people throwing bananas at the screen.
Man, all right. So what? Regal? Is that Regal? Maybe someone smaller. All right. So I guess if we're going to talk about viruses and streaming media, Dale got a new job, and with that new job has come new hours. She now works like mid-shift. So that gives me and my parents time to watch shows that she's not interested in. And one of those shows, for better or for ill, was The Morning Show on Apple TV Plus. And do you know what the second season of Apple TV Plus's The Morning Show focuses on? Any idea? You want to take a stab in the dark?
Well, like, so it ended up being the kind of a dramedy of a show that really focused on like sexism in the workplace, right? Am I mistaken about what show we're talking about?
No, we're talking about the right show. The first season really, really dressed down like the Les Moonves stuff going on at CBS, the Matt Lauer stuff going on at the Today Show. Like, those were kind of the big targets.
And some of the bombshell stuff going on at Fox, right?
Yeah.
Like, a lot of
less the bombshell stuff, because it really feels like more the broadcast, less the cable side of things.
Okay.
If I'm going to be completely honest about it, because... And the best part is that like the Good Morning,
meant, like the contracts and like the women like realizing like what they were being contracted for.
No,
in a lot of places.
that's not in that show at all, unfortunately.
Okay.
And I think not.
I just thought there was some stuff about like sexual harassment and things like that, and only being.
No, but the sexual harassment and things like that, they're more closely tied to the blind eye being cast by Les Moonves at the top of CBS. because he was doing it as well. There's like a whole character stand-in for that. And then the other one is Mitch, played by Steve Carell. He's the anchor who's taking advantage of people. There's not like a deeper, more insidious, here's your contract, this is what you have to do for us sort of thing. And they didn't realize it. Because it's, I mean, Bombshell, that movie was fantastic and everything that it did. That's next level from what they're trying to accomplish with the morning show, which is to look at specifically CBS's This Morning and the Today Show and kind of dress them down to the fact that Good Morning America has a stand-in show in it, and they're pretty much like the clean one.
Okay.
It's weird, but that's the first season. The first season is really, it is revealed that Mitch has been like sexually harassing and taking advantage of lower level employees, and that's the first season. For the second season, really lifting from Aaron Sorkin's The Newsroom over at HBO Max, mirroring events in semi-real time, it opens on December 31st, 2019.
Oh no. Okay.
Well, that's not true. It opens in April 2020 with a 10-minute drone tour of New York City that is just devoid of humanity. Like, apocalypse sort of level, there's just nobody on the streets of New York. Probably shot during the height of the pandemic.
Right.
And then December 31st, 2019, there's been all these little hints that COVID is coming. Like, there's some virus coming out of China. Do we want to give any time to that this week? No, that's not going to be a big deal, right? It's just a small virus right now. And then in the next episode, like, maybe somebody should be covering this. Like, the numbers are starting to go up. Okay, so we'll send you over there. And then the third episode, he's in quarantine in Wuhan, China.
Man.
And it's just like, oh my God. Like, I'm not ready for it. I'm not ready for that kind of look at it. And especially because it's all background stuff. Like, at the forward part of it is Reese Witherspoon's character. Nobody really cares about her without Jennifer Aniston there, because she left after the whole reveal at the end of the episode in the first season. And so it's trying to buoy her, trying to get Jennifer Aniston to come back. I'm only about 4 episodes into it, so the COVID hasn't hit the fan yet, but oh my God, it's just hanging out in the corner, and you can see it, and you're like, eventually he's going to turn around and say something racist and ruin this party. and it's really fucking strange to watch that, and the way that, like, because they even put in, right, because the first season released in 2020 that, oh, we have this cruise ship that's being quarantined off the coast of Hawaii because of some mysterious illness. So, like, they sort of gave themselves the pathway to get there. I don't know. It's not fun entertainment, and I'm not going to give it any more time, but that's something that we started this week, and I was kind of excited, right? Because that show is all about Billy Crudup's reaction faces. He has so much fun doing his job. And then the first episode, he's in it for literally 2 scenes. And then the rest of the episodes, I'm like, that's Billy Crudup just having fun reacting to things. But eventually he's going to react to COVID. And oh my God, I don't know if I'm prepared yet. And it's really strange when you think about the fact that it released like tail end of 2021.
Yeah.
So I'm going to finish the season and I'll touch back at it. But if you're talking about the viral outbreak and identifying COVID in the Resident Evil Netflix series, I mean, it's not the first one to do it.
Yeah, well, and they do it extremely casually, whereas here it seems like it's at least plot significant in certain aspects.
Possibly. I mean, I imagine it will eventually be, but right now it's just like, oh, you see the breadcrumbs. You see the breadcrumbs.
Well, and so, like, the bigger thing is like when they do mention it in Resident Evil, the first reaction is like, well, do we need to isolate? Do we need to wear masks? There's like a reaction to how COVID wasn't treated well, maybe, let's say, and like how we should maybe take this one seriously, and of course it's blown off, so it becomes this really weird commentary because of that in a lot of weird ways, but it doesn't happen enough for me to call it like a major thing. I think it's more the idea that they felt it would be really ignorant of them to not
to do a show about a viral
outbreak,
yeah.
and not mention it, so like we kind of have to say this, and so they do their due diligence, but other than that, it's not major.
Speaking of due diligence and all that, we are recording on the day when the World Health Organization announced monkeypox as a global emergency.
Yep.
Just to check in with that as we talk about two shows that are primarily about viral outbreaks.
Yeah, look into what the deal is on that one too, because it's related to smallpox, so you may be okay with a smallpox vaccine, but then there are people that are like, that thing only lasts 5 years, and fuck me, I haven't gotten a smallpox vaccine in 5 years. I actually know the exact last time I got one because I had friends that were traveling to Africa, and they basically got a 2-for-1 deal on vaccines. But anyway.
But yeah, no, it's just something to be aware of as we talk kind of casually about entertainment and how they're handling virus stuff in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. That, like, we have another one on our doorstep already. And isn't that just fucking... I want to move on from here. And I'll move on to Cobra Kai, because we finally started Cobra Kai in the house as well.
Nice.
We're only 7 episodes in. The last episode we watched was the Karate Kid remake episode, where Johnny got back into the All Valley Karate tournament as his son learned wax on, wax off, and the bonsai stuff. Really all the greatest hits. And then Miguel is at the golfing place. Really enjoying Cobra Kai. Started off a little bit shaky. Started off a little bit, we have a YouTube budget. First 2 episodes.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing you got to remember about that show is that's what they were dealing with, and they still pushed because of how much that story meant to them. And I think that's one of the best like stories that I don't think it's ever going to be emulated. Like, I don't think anybody else is ever going to have that same trajectory. The closest thing I think in the past they got to that like we started on YouTube, built a fan base, got the money, suddenly we're bought by Netflix, like boom, like that's the dream for sure. But I think maybe like Mortal Kombat, when man, 8 years ago they were doing like Michael Jai White and what's her name from Star Trek there, the Borg.
7 of 9. What is her name?
Shoot. Oh my God, I'm so mad about Jerry Ryan.
Yeah.
So Jerry Ryan and Michael Jai White and stuff leading up like that cast doing some really fucking stellar like basically not rated because they were online Mortal Kombat stuff, and that eventually led to I think like 2 seasons worth of episodes for them. They were pretty short.
Yeah.
But like they got a pretty decent following, and there was talk about Mortal Kombat like picking back up steam and stuff. And then what happened was they just they did bring Mortal Kombat, but they revamped it to the point where they didn't use that, and which is disappointing considering that they were pretty instrumental in a lot of the specifically the film and television side of Mortal Kombat, like really kind of bringing back that
fan base side, that other wolf into the Mortal Kombat franchise. Interesting stuff that Sejan talks about garnering respect, garnering a fan base, and then kind of turning your back on it. Remember that when we get into another topic we're going to discuss this week.
I mean, are we not there yet?
You know what?
I think putting stuff off to the end, and we're getting pretty close.
Yeah, no, I know we're getting to that point where we need to do. Yeah, let's transition. Anything else that I've done this week? I'm trying to think if there's anything. Oh, I wanted to just discuss real quick. Single Drunk Female, the Freeform show. That was really enjoyable. Check it out. I was pleasantly surprised. It has a big tonal whiplash problem, though, because there are episodes that are fantastic, and then there are episodes where I'm like, I don't want to watch you anymore. What are you doing for this series? And it turned out not much at the end of the day. But yeah, Single Drunk Female, it's on Hulu right now, and it's got a 2nd season coming. Very rarely do we talk about those. Oh, and Leverage. Leverage is finally on broadcast TV. It's on the Ion network. I don't know if you have that around, but that I'm finally watching Leverage Redemption because I don't have to do the Freevee commercials. I can use my DVR to skip around them.
Nice.
So yeah, so that's all that. But yeah, it's time. Sejan's right. Let's crack open the cam. And what we need to talk about is the other big thing that I did this week. And I say this week, but this is something that started at the end of May. Yeah, end of May.
Okay.
Is I completed River City Ransom Underground. And River City Ransom Underground, for those who don't know, is a 2017 released, 2013 Kickstarter funded true sequel to the original River City Ransom from 1987. Mm-hmm. Because their big thing is this is the 30th. I guess I don't know. There's like it's for the 30th anniversary. That was their big selling point on it. Yeah, so the 30th anniversary, that'd be 87. And this game is not very good. I enjoyed my time with it, but it's one of those games where it was kickstarted, so they did what they could with it. But as of 2018, they're like, there will be no more patches to this game. Basically, consider it dead media in a lot of ways, or abandonware. I think that's the proper term for it, right? When it's online.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that I think it hit the abandonware is it was $20,000 short in the Kickstarter timeline of making it to console releases. So it was only released on PC to Steam and Good Old Games. I think that's what GOG stands for, right?
Yes, that is exactly what GOG stands for.
I mean, that just seems strange to me that they also do new games on there, but
that's why they went. That's why they became GOG.
Okay, cool.
They're not Good Old Games anymore. They're now GOG.
Right. Right. So River City Ransom Underground, it is a direct sequel. All the names are the same. It's Alex and Ryan instead of Kunio and Ricky. And it's the same sort of animation from the River City Ransom game. And it was interesting. Now, the only reason that I actually said I'm going to play River City Underground, I'm going to drop the Ransom. I'm just going to call it River City Underground, but understand that the Ransom is there. Is because River City Girls 2 was announced last year, and I love River City Girls. I don't think I've made that not known on this show, right?
And it's not a secret, right?
Yeah, it's not a secret. I had the world record for a hard co-op clear for like 11 months. It's just one of those things. So River City Girls 2 gets announced, and I'm excited. I want to go into it. And how it was announced was with like silhouettes of characters who were going to be added to the series. And looking at one of the silhouettes, I recognized it as a character from River City Ransom Underground because, look, I can't even keep myself straight. Because I'd been looking at the game being like, should I play through this game? Is this something that's worth my time? So I've been looking at the poster art a lot. And I recognized Provi, one of the characters created and introduced in River City Underground, as one of the new characters who is going to be in River City Girls 2. So there's just your story there, right? Okay. So I'm like, so I finally want to play this game. I want to understand, because if you're using a character from the game, it kind of feels like it's becoming canon, right? Like it's becoming canonized in a way that it sort of hasn't been, especially if you go to like the list of Kunio games on the website, it is considered a spin-off game. It is not considered part of the main franchise. And that's whatever. Playing through the game, it feels like River City Ransom until you beat up Merv, who is Sabu from the Japanese games.
Right.
At that point, you think like that's going to be the end of the game, because the setup for this game, spoilers for River City Underground, if you're ever going to play it, is you're in a gang called the Flock, and at the beginning of the game, you're accused of kidnapping Sabu Merv. I'm going to call him Sabu because he's Sabu. He's always been Sabu to me. You're accused of kidnapping Sabu's angel. Now, they don't explain what that is, but it makes it sound like it's like his daughter or something. And as somebody who's played River City Girls, where the final boss is Sabu's daughter, Sabuko, like that's where my mind went, right? Playing this game that released in 2017. And the Flock is accused of doing it, so it basically goes Warriors open season on the Flock. So the Flock needs to go through River City trying to clear their name by finding out who really kidnapped the angel character, right?
Right.
So you go through all of that, and then...
I mean, you keep saying this, and I keep thinking it's going to be like some crazy anime ending where his angel is like his pet parrot.
Is his pet dog.
There we go.
Yep. Chris, the leader of the Flock, who has been missing from the beginning of the game, turns out that she was also kidnapped with the dog, and she had gotten the dog back and then was kidnapped, so that's why everybody thought that they had stolen the dog and they were to blame for it. And then it's revealed that it's the dog, and like you think that's going to be the end of the game, right? But after that, a bunch of clones start walking around the city. None of the regular enemies are there. They're all like grayscale with purple clothing, which, okay. And then you go back to the garage that you've been using as like a hideout headquarters type thing, and you're told that there are clones all over, and you need to follow this one, and you follow him, and you end up going beneath. Oh, it's a little Resident Evil, too, if you want to talk about it. End up going beneath River City High School, where there's a huge, like, industrial complex built where they've been doing cloning experiments in River City. And the game, at that point, has completely gone off the fucking rails.
No,
because... Shit. Now you're running through this thing, fighting people, trying to figure out what the whole thing is. And it just feels like this weird departure from everything that had happened up to that point.
Yeah, it sounds fucking wild. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, whatever, like, games do that and all that. But it does seem like that Kickstarter thing of, like, oh, we're going to have a regular game, but then we're going to have something crazy at the end of it. Like early Kickstarted video games. And again, this is 2013, so like Shovel Knight was just successful, so it launched 1,000 ships that were trying to do the same thing.
Well, and a lot of that comes down to money, budgeting, and what they do is they put all of their money into a big ending. You know, not all of their money, obviously. They flesh out the rest of the game, but like they lean heavy towards giving you like a big finish.
Right.
With the money is a big part of it, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas, like, I would have been okay if it ended with the bait and switch and the fact that, like, oh, his angel was his dog. Ha ha ha. I can't believe that the town wanted to kill us because of this. Let's go get burgers and milkshakes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the game. Now, it becomes bloated at the end. I will say this. Leading up to Sabu, there was no progression saving. Like, you need to take a window washer, what are those things called? Like a scaffold? Like a hanging scaffold? Is that what that sort of thing is? Like a window? Yeah. So in order to get into Sabu's tower, you need to ride up along the side. And it feels like
an elevator level,
the standard elevator level in a beat-em-up game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You do that, you fight, and then once you're up there, you need to fight through 5 rooms, and you have to kill everybody in those rooms in order to get a key card to move forward. And then the last 3 of those rooms, there's a jet that's just hanging around outside that's also shooting at you. So it was freaking insane. And the last room, there's platforming added to all of it. So it's this crazy kind of gauntlet, feels like you're leading to the end of the game anyway moment. But your progress is not saved. If you've gotten the key card, you still have to fight and get the key card again if you were to die at the end.
Ugh.
That's an annoyance, right? And that's why Dale and I had started this at the end of May. We got halfway through the game. There's this terrible, you have to retrieve a bottle of milk mission. That's an escort mission, but it is the most ridiculous thing ever, because if you set it down, it can be attacked by other enemies and broken. And while you're carrying it, you can't attack anybody. Like, it's this really big sort of delay in the middle of the game. Why? And that's what there's also like chase the enemy sections in the front end of the game, and then when you catch up to them, you don't fight them. It's just like chase them through River City, talk to them, and then they tell you the next person that you have to chase, instead of having fighting in your beat 'em up game.
Yeah.
It's just weird. Like, there's a lot of questionable choices. But that first time, right after we did the milk thing, we're like, all right, we're taking a freaking break, right? Because it was stressful to get it done. And then we lost our game save. Our game save deleted.
Oh, boy.
So we had to go through everything up to that point again. And that was annoying. That was a big annoyance. And then they followed that up with a randomized, you have to fight 6 different guys and get their dog tags to get access to a military site.
So this is all base game, right?
This is all base regular game. Yeah. Okay. And those guys, the thing about finding them is there's like 4 screens that you run through, and occasionally a military type helicopter will land and one of them will come out. So there's not like it's all RNG. It's all, maybe when you enter this thing, you'll have the helicopter come. And then some of those places are like the areas where like fighting would be fun. One of them is a park that has a reflecting pool in the middle of it. It's not fun to fight in a pool of water where your moves are slowed down, but the enemy doesn't have that same thing. The game has a lot of issues, is basically the takeaway from my time with River City Underground, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have to imagine that there was some success to it because it's released in February of 2017. And then in March of 2017, they released River City Melee, which is a relocalization of a 2016 Japanese game. In June, they released River City Knights of Justice, which is a relocalization of a game from 2014. And then in November, they released River City Rival Showdown, which is another localization of a game that came out in Japan the October before. So, like, these games didn't stop in Japan. They were still making these games in Japan, but they weren't bringing them over to America because there might not be a market for it.
Yeah.
So, this game either said to the company, Arc System Works, these games are worth bringing over to America. I can't find like sales numbers or not, but 3 more games from the series are released on the success of River City Underground. And then
the one thing that I remember about River City Underground is the hype, though, you know?
Oh, yes.
And so it might not even be a matter of like numbers success, but literal just, you know, we're talking about the birth of social media and Twitch and all that sort of shit happening in all of this time. So, like, you know, this could just be them realizing that there is a need for games to be released. It could be us. I don't know much about the success of them either, though, because
I mean, did you ever play River City Underground?
I was going to say, to my knowledge, you're the only person I know that's ever played it, so.
Yeah, and I've asked other people who, like, I know like the series, like, oh, you want to get together, try to go through River City Underground? And I could never find people who were interested in it. And then I'm like, oh, it's a lot on Steam. I was kind of hoping that it would come to a console. I'll wait. And I eventually waited until this year. That's the year when Pruvy and it found like, well, I think I need to do it for the story. But what I found out, so River City Girls comes out in 2019, so 2 years later. It is the director of River City Underground, Bannon Rudis, who is approached by Adam Turney of Way Forward saying, we want to do a departure from what is known. We want it to be more zany, more goofy. We want to do like a different style game, but still like honor everything that came beforehand. And that's what River City Girls is. And they nailed it. The game is a success. People really enjoy this game. Since that has come out, they've released 6 games in America that probably wouldn't have come to America, like the Double Dragon Kunio-kun Retro Brawler bundle that was released in 2020. That had been released in Japan, and then they're like, well, no, there's a market now for all of the old games. Like the Double Dragon stuff, so let's do it. Stay Cool Kobayashi, that probably would have just stayed in Japan, especially since the storyline is very Japanese related. River City Girls 0, that's just a relocalization of a game from 1994 that we've already talked about on the series, where the River City Girls, the title of that game, they're shot and you can't play for them in the final act of the game because they're dying in a hospital. So, like, really cool to call it River City Girls, right?
Yeah.
And then just recently, and the reason why we're talking about it, because it got us to go back and finish River City Underground, is River City Saga 3 Kingdoms just released on July 21st of this year. And that is them essentially doing a play of the story of the 3 Kingdoms of China with the Kunio-kun characters playing all of the roles. But the River City Girls, as the River City Girls, like same moveset, same colors and all of that, are featured as characters and have been a big part of the marketing for that game. Right? So that's the thing. River City Girls is successful. River City Girls 2, Nintendo Force Magazine did a big, like, 6-page spread preview about the game. And I got it because I'm hyped for this game. I really want to play River City Girls 2. It's something I'm looking forward to as a fan of the first one. But now, having completed River City Underground and then reading that preview, I'm nervous, Sejin. I'm really nervous.
So what is it about the comparison between the two? Like, a lot of what's going on in that article doesn't sound like what you're talking about in Underground. Is it? Is there a lot of that in the DNA of Underground?
The moments that I pointed out to you that are like really important is the headquarters system. That is lifted directly from River City Underground.
Okay.
You find headquarters in parts of the city, and then when you die, that's where you restart from.
Yeah. Well, so a system like that can definitely work if the rest of the game is balanced to it. It sounds like what was going on in Underground is that was not the case. You know, the whole milk mission that you talked about and things like that. Like that just feels like that was not well catered to that style of save system. You know, and so like getting that kind of down is important. And considering the success that they had on the first game with River City Girls, I mean, there's nothing indicating that they can't figure that out. You know, because that system, that idea of like, you know, save and to a point is like,
it's old gaming, and I usually don't have a problem with it.
Exactly. It just needs to be implemented well.
Where it doesn't work well in River City Underground is the fact that like there aren't headquarters or save points later on in the game. Like once you get to Sabu's Tower, there's a street of shops, but there's nowhere there where you can set up a headquarters. So your nearest headquarters is either the garage or it's the garage. It's the main garage because there's a subway that you can board that takes you nearby. But if you die, like you have to do all that walking again, and it just feels strange. And so that was the first one that made me kind of go, you know, Pro-V, headquarters, I'm a little bit nervous. Then later on in that article, they talk about the Abobo brothers. And there's a level in the game, the whole cloning area, where you find that exact shot from the article in River City Underground.
Nice.
So that's another, like, so I'm like, okay, so that's another thing that's going to give me pause. And then the last thing that has been revealed just this weekend, they did a Twitch stream, Ask Me Anything, is that the night and day system from River City Underground is also going to be coming back for River City Girls 2. And that system was poorly implemented in terms of just like, oh, this is where you need to be to have the next part of the story happen.
Yeah.
But if you're past the exact time when it happens, and it's not really indicated like well how to do that, so it makes me, as Dale said, what you need to just accept, Devon, is that River City Girls 2 is going to be a remake of River City Underground. It's a slant remake. It's just, by all accounts, it's just Bannon Rudis who is doing it, and River City Underground was his baby. He directed it, he wrote it, he had everything to do with it. It doesn't look like, based on everything that I found, Adam Turney is involved in this one. So I'm nervous. I'm nervous that the game that was successful, that everybody seems to enjoy, River City Girls, they're gonna burn off that goodwill.
They're gonna shoot themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's a reasonable fear to have as somebody that has now experienced all of those games and all of that. The only thing I would say is, like, game's not out yet. Like,
game's not out
you
yet.
have to try it. And the biggest thing that I would point to is that, like, they succeeded in reviving a very well past dead genre with River City Girls. They did a damn good job of doing exactly that. And so, I mean, it sounds like that's just what they're attempting to do again. You know, just with this other version of this game that didn't do well, all the more reason to take a second swing at it, right? I'd rather they try it again and improve on it if they're in the position, than like never making one of these again, you know?
Yeah, and I certainly hope that it continues to have support, right? It's not one of these ones that becomes abandonware after the release on GOG. That's the other crazy thing, is there'll be no more work or patches put into this game, and there are still some pretty egregious errors in the game. Like Dale's character...
In Underground, you mean?
Yeah, in Underground. Because Dale's character, like, her combo straight up didn't work. And they're like, that's a thing that can happen sometimes, and the only way to do it is to, like, erase your progress and restart. And it's like, well, we're not doing that a third time.
Yeah.
Like, that we're not going to do that for a third time. There are stat issues where for some characters, they just don't level up. Like, in the final area, every time we want to fight, I would level up, and Dale's character would not level up. So, like, I was level 40, the level cap of the game, while Dale was still level 14. And it just was like, I don't know what we're supposed to do here. You're killing people, you're delivering final blows, and I'm getting the levels. Like, the game is still broken Underground. So if River City Girls 2...
That's weird. It feels like it's only really working for first player, essentially.
Yeah,
what happens if you trade up her playing? That'd be wild.
Yeah,
but you'd have to start again.
You'd have to start again to do it. It's just, I don't know. I don't know what to do. Like, we played through it. I'm happy to say that I've completed it, right? I'm happy that I got it on very, very, very reduced price on a sale, right? I think I paid $2 for it on a sale. I got $2 worth of entertainment from it. But it does make me a little bit nervous to see so much of its DNA in the follow-up to River City Girls 2, which the big, like, practice and, like, mission objective of that game was to depart from where it had been before and try to make something for modern audiences. I'm happy if they can Trojan horse it in and it works, because exploring a larger River City, I think that'll be fun.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and the other thing is, because you said early days of the internet, right? It's sort of like the Pork and Beans video from Weezer, where there's just so many internet references throughout the game. Like, you fight me from Dad and Me. And it's not explained why you fight me from Dad and Me. It's just the fight that happens in the game. Shovel Knight is there in one scene. You go by Newgrounds offices. It's just, it's very weird. It's just, like, River City Ransom Underground is this weird little, like, artifact of a certain type in gaming. And like you said, River City Girls sort of reignited a genre. It came out, and then we see things like Streets of Rage 4 coming, and, like, that's a huge success. It's such a success that now River City Girls is borrowing certain things from that game that worked out that were not implemented in it, like going 4-player and having a combo counter, not a combo system. They had a combo system before. And then we have, like, the Ninja Turtles game that came out. I don't think that would have happened in a world without River City Girls, like, sort of taking that first step. So it's this important game, and I'm just nervous. That's what it boils down to. I thought that River City Ransom Underground would make me more excited by understanding the story that Pruvia was coming from, but it just raised more questions for me. Not least of all the fact that it's supposed to take place 20 years after the events of River City Ransom. So Kyoko and Masako would be 20 years older than Pruvia, but they would be the same age.
Wibbly wobbly timey wimey. Yeah,
they're in a coma, right? I will stand by my coma theory.
They are put into a coma crystal, as we often do with coma patients, and they do not age the entire time they're in it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just that's where I am, and I needed to get it off my chest on the show, especially as a release date for the new River City Girls game should be coming any time now. Like, it was supposed to come out summer 2022.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. My hope is that it releases on or around September 5th, which would be the anniversary of the release of the first game, because then you only have to remember one date for when they each came out.
Which is required for passing all life in general, right?
I don't know. It's just where I'm at. But it's the release of Ninja Turtles. Like, it really felt like they were playing chicken with Shredder's Revenge.
Yeah,
Like, they didn't want to get swallowed up by the hype of that game was, like, just creating for itself that it delivered on. I mean, 1 million copies sold in the first week is insane.
Right.
Though I do wonder if that includes downloads on Game Pass. Like, what they're calling sales.
Yeah, I don't know. Back in the day when PS Plus first started, there was a lot of conversation about this, because I guess it came to light that PlayStation was pretty much paying developers for every download, right? Like, they were treating it as if it was a purchase, and then PlayStation was the one eating the cost on that, which makes sense for what the promotion is or was of Plus. Now Plus is a whole billion different things, but so with that same thing in mind, does that matter? Like, if they are getting that money anyway for those like, who cares that those downloads might have been free to the consumer? Somebody along the line was paying money for somebody to have that in hand, and they were getting,
exactly. But 1 million copies sold, including people who downloaded the game as part of a subscription they're already paying for, is very different as if 1 million different copies were purchased.
Yeah.
Like, and each one of those was somebody saying, "Here, take my money." I mean, I'm guilty of that. I bought it 3 times, not including my Game Pass. I bought it on Steam, Switch, and for PlayStation because I had other people I wanted to play with who only had it available on those platforms. And I'm fine doing that. I'm not upset that I did it. And I like to say that 3 of those are me of that million sold.
Right.
But it's just a thing. But yeah, they were playing release date chicken with that game, right? And I think that's good. It's given them more time to polish it up and finish it. But now that that's come out, I would have expected it to be released before, like, River City Saga 3 Kingdoms.
Mm-hmm.
Before another game in the Kunio-kun series.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be coming out summer 2022. And honestly, the only reason that I say that is because fate will prove me wrong and they'll give a release date today now.
We want to put this out in the universe so that we can be wrong and be happy.
Yeah, exactly. I've figured out your game, Mr. Universe. All right, so that's it. I think that's everything there. I felt like getting it off my chest because it's been something that's been weighing on me. Now it's time to talk Portal Co-op on the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, that brand new game out on the Nintendo Switch. No, the companion package, right? What is it called?
The companion collection, the Portal companion collection.
I've been just having a blast with it, with all of it, every single piece of it, and I was so happy that we finally get to do the co-op stuff because I remembered back in the day it being one of my favorite things. Like, it was so much fun to play with people. I used it on like a couple of dates and stuff like that. Like, it was just such a fun experience. And then it just kind of died off because nobody had it. Nobody had the means to play Portal 2, like all of that sort of stuff. So it has been gone from my life for a while. So finding out that this package was going to include it and they were going to allow the online and stuff, and it was just, I was so looking forward to this particular part of this whole package.
I agree. For me, I was hanging out with some people. I know where the house is. I don't remember who exactly was there. I know it was a Thursday night because we watched the new episode of The Office. And that was a big deal to the people I was hanging out with, is we can play games, but at 9 o'clock we're watching The Office. Do you remember that? Do you remember when you had to schedule time to watch TV?
Yeah, man. I was in an apartment on campus. I was in a dorm apartment on campus. I was in a dorm on campus, and my roommate was an avid watcher of the Office, and listened to the Office podcast, and also torrented the Office. So the Office happened a lot, and scheduling Thursday nights so that person, they would take time off from rehearsals to be home to watch episodes of the Office. I can't do rehearsals on Thursday nights. Why? Because The Office. Oh, okay. Was an accepted excuse in our department.
That's crazy. Especially if they're going to torrent it anyway. But, darker shades of gray on the internet. Let's not dive into those right now. But yeah, so we sat down to play the Orange Box, to play Portal 2. And we got through, I want to say 3 of the 5 sections in the Portal 2 co-op. Stopped to play The Office. And then I'm like, all right, so we're done. We're not going to go back to it. That's okay, right? It's not there. Then they're like, no, let's continue. Let's finish it. Let's finish the co-op. And we played till the 6th mission in the 5th area. And that was the end of my Portal 2 co-op experience for such a long time.
There was literally, at that point, 40 minutes left. If you guys could figure it out.
Siege, I gotta tell you, the quickest missions that we did yesterday were the 7th and 8th mission.
Yeah.
Of that 5th section. The 2 missions that I had never laid eyes upon, we flew through. I don't know. It's just one of those situations where I'm just to find out that, this was 2011 that happened. To find out that I was 2 missions away from being able to say I've completed Portal 2 co-op, on one hand, I was happy because I'm finally done, but on the other hand, it made me retroactively kind of pissed off at those guys.
I mean, yeah, you should have been the entire time anyway. I mean, I think that it is such a super well-built, well-balanced co-op experience. And, I mean, you said it as we were playing yesterday. It felt every moment like we were both contributing. Even those moments where, we were getting aggravated with ourselves, with each other, and, trying to, take charge and just do something because we just wanted to try it. There was always a moment of, okay, explain to what you just did to me and why that worked, or let's talk about why it didn't. Like we were consistently in communication. Like it is a stellar co-op experience, and I can't think of any other co-op puzzle game, period, or like any game that I've done co-op where I've been that communicative and that like and that excited to like figure something out. Like it is an experience like no other.
I'm so mad right now. I'm so mad right now. Do you want to know why I'm mad right now?
Why?
Because we're going to do It Takes Two. We're going to do It Takes Two. It won Game of the Year last year, and we just did Portal 2, and like the next logical step is to do It Takes Two together, Siegen. And that's just the thing that's going to happen sometime on the show. I don't know. Okay. Maybe when I can figure out a way for us to actually stream it. Because I wanted to stream our Portal 2 stuff, but my desk is in no condition to stream right now.
Yeah.
But know that it's coming, because after what Siegen said, I would be interested to see what you think about It Takes Two. Because I was not a hyper fan of it, but I am willing to do it with you. And just in advance, my favorite thing about doing Portal 2 with you was, why were you yelling at him? And I'm like, it's not like I wasn't mad at him. It's just like excitement or like a little bit of frustration, and it's just boiling through. I hope that we're okay, Siegen. I hope that you're okay that I yelled at you apparently during Portal 2.
But it's one of those experiences. But that's what I mean by well balanced and like and well rounded. It's like it's one of those experiences where you definitely get aggravated because like that's what gaming does, right? Is it builds that up, and like the trick is to like not do it to the point where it's not fun anymore, right? But that aggravation, that build up, when we would finally figure something out, made it all worth it, right?
So
like,
much.
The process of figuring it out. And so, like, no, I would not have even clocked it as yelling at me so much as just the two of us were constantly just like, what are you doing? You're doing it wrong.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Like, to hear that, like, we weren't yelling at each other, were we? Did we yell at each other? Did I yell at Siegen and him not yell back? Because there was one moment I remember very vividly. You're like, no, just do this. Why aren't you just doing this? And I'm like, I shot the wrong color, Siegen. Please understand that I shot the wrong color. I fucked myself at the end here. There's nothing else I can do right now.
You could leap over the little ledge, and then you would have fallen. It's fine. It's fine.
There was a wall. There was glass.
Okay. We're not playing it right now.
No, we're not playing it right now.
I will have to take your word for it.
I think I took a video. No, but like that's the thing. It was fun. It was this really fun, and what I really did like was it didn't feel like Siegen, who had completed it like at least 2 times prior to us doing it, was just like steamrolling and telling me this is what we have to do, this is where you have to go. It felt like both of us like were contributing to our success at different points in the game.
Yeah.
Like, I really enjoyed, like, one thing where I'm like, I got it. I totally got it. Just shut up and let me work out what I have here, and then I will present my facts to you.
Yeah. We would have to kind of go off to separate rooms and, like, figure shit out in different areas and then combine thought. Like, it was really, it was a blast.
It really was a blast. And what impresses me the most about it is that it was on fucking Nintendo Switch.
Yeah. Well, I think we only had one real incident where for some reason we were definitely solving the puzzle, but the thing wasn't reacting, right?
Yeah.
And it felt like it was just a really weird moment. But beyond that, like no major issues or flaws, never dropped. It was clear, it was beautiful like the entire time. And like that's a game where a lot of what's going on, like the motions you're going through and the places you end up, like it's got a lot of heavy lifting it has to do on its end. I mean, the physics engine alone, right?
Yeah. The fact that, and the reflection that, like, when you look through a portal, you see the other portal, like, that it's rendering both of those things in real time. Yeah. Like, it's an intense game to have running on Nintendo Switch A. But then the B of it really was the fact that it didn't feel like Siegen was across the country playing the game. Right. It felt like we were in the same room. Yeah. There was never a moment where it's like, oh, my game's behind, I'm going to have to catch up to you. It all felt real time. And as people who have experimented with and generally criticized the online experience on Nintendo Switch, it is really nice to see that some games can work.
Yeah, and I will say that this is not the first game in the last few months that we've pointed this out on. I mean, the same thing for TMNT, right? Like we noted there that there was a really good online experience. We only had one weird moment with the person we were playing with, and that was on his end with controllers getting turned on and off.
Controller issues. Yeah, so that was it. But it was like I've seen a lot of more issues on the Steam version. I will say that, where like the game just refuses to move forward for some reason.
Yeah, online. I've run into one or two moments of that myself playing with some other friends where like you clear a screen and then you get up to the wall and it doesn't move forward, but for them it does. And then what's really wild is they then clear the next screen and
it populates
then you can move.
Yeah.
And then what happens is you get there and everything's already done. And it's only a killer if you needed a pizza and they ate your pizza. But that's that has happened a couple of times. That is true. But but that is not. But I have played so many hours of that game online now. For me to be able to point to one or two things that I didn't even think of when I think of that game is already a step in the right direction compared to say like Mario Maker, right?
Or Mario Golf, where it just was like, what is happening?
Oh yeah, I forgot. We kept getting dropped out of Mario Golf too. Yeah.
And that's like a year game. So things are getting better. I'm not prepared to buy any of these cloud-based Nintendo Switch games. Oh, no. I will say that. That I do not believe that it is there
Kingdom Hearts
yet.
is the big one I can think of right now. What are some other ones that are in that boat?
Control, Hitman 3. Those are the other big ones that like did cloud betas in order to see what the server could handle.
Right.
And then I haven't heard anything since those betas.
Yeah.
But Kingdom Hearts 3 is the one where, like, too many people are playing right now. Go fucking kill yourself.
Yeah. Go outside or something. I don't know.
Like, it's just like, oh, okay, I paid for this game, right? It's weird how people can be playing cloud-based on Xbox and not have that issue with, like, the server is full.
Yeah, but I mean... Also, like, I gave you money to play a game, and now you're not letting me play the game I paid for. Like, how am I being compensated in some way, right? Like, what is like? And you know, I work in IT, so like, I hate like that idea that every time something goes wrong, everybody feels like they're owed like I don't know, like a month free or some bullshit. Like that's like I'm not saying it has to be anything crazy like that, but like, hey, maybe lower the price of your fucking internet, your online service until you fix it. Like.
Yeah, it's that one is it. If I went to go play a game that I've bought and thought that like, oh no, I can play it. Yeah, I'm not there yet, but I am saying Portal 2 and that experience feeling so seamless was really impressive to me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't expect that. And I had a blast doing it. So thank you, Siegen, for being my first to complete the co-op Portal 2 storyline with. Maybe we'll go do some of the extra levels, because that was a fun thing to find. But I was not ready to do it yesterday.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the really cool things about Portal 2 going forward when it released originally, because being a Valve game, it was up on Steam and there was like mod support for it and through Gary's Mod and things like that. And so like there's all sorts of like cool shit that people had built for it. And so that extra level stuff is cool, because I wonder if it's some of the community build stuff, because for a while they were doing like voting processes and stuff, and the better ones were like rising to the top and all that. Alex's mod? No, that's Half-Life. There was a big one for Portal 2 that had a really cool like additional thing to it. Within the main story of Portal 2, you find some stuff out about like Bring Your Daughter to Work Day that's also present in Portal 1. And one of the add-ons was one of the girls that had been left behind and things like that. There's some really interesting stuff that got made for that by the community and modders and stuff after it had come out, and so that kind of gave me hope, because I know there's also some bonus level stuff in the Portal 2 start menu, if I remember correctly.
I don't know. My experience has been what I've done with you, and then that one night in 2011 playing almost through it. So I don't know. I wasn't really like PC game wise. It kind of picked up for me in 2020. Like Cyber Shadow is what like the first game where I'm like, I'm also gonna buy this on PC because that's where I would need to speed run it. And I got real deep into that game for a while. And it kind of opened it up and made me realize, oh, this hunk of junk computer that I built, I love you, baby. Don't think I don't love you. But it's a Dell Optiplex that I basically dropped a graphics card into.
Click and click and go.
And it's actually capable of running most games.
Nice.
Yeah. I was impressed by Ninja Turtles. I was nervous that one might not run very well. and I've been having a blast.
The only other one we got to do is Golf with Your Friends put out a new course recently, so we gotta check that out.
I cannot wait to golf with you, Sejan, because you're my friend, best friend. Golfing
I promise not
friend.
to yell at you.
No, you can yell at me. I don't mind if you're gonna yell at me. I'm gonna yell back. I just don't like when the response is, "Why do you yell at him?" Like, because he hits me, Mom, and I let him. No, Sejan, I don't think. Have we ever come to blows?
Physical ones? No.
Yeah, no, we haven't. Right? That was something I did a lot in high school. Got into like fist fights with my friends. I was a hot-blooded hero. What can I say? That's a Kunio reference.
And I was a young man in high school raised on toxic masculinity, so...
So you just pretended to be a badass.
Yeah, I think we all did, is the kind of the point.
Oh, no, I had the references to back it up.
Oh, okay. Now I'm just imagining you with like fucking John Travolta look from Grease.
Oh man, I don't know if I was the Danny Zuko. I just remember the one.
No, you were more of a Fonzie.
I still think I am kind of a Fonzie, right? I didn't really learn the lesson from The Wedding Singer that nobody wants to watch 50-year-old dudes picking up chicks. Speaking of which, a little bit of celebration to the streaming discussion, and tie-in to what we do here at the Say Report, when we're not Say reporting. But kudos to Peacock for hearing that we're going to do You Don't Mess with the Zohan on next month Adam Sandler Cinematic Universe, and then putting it up as part of their subscription model.
Oh man.
So yeah, if you're catching up with the Adam Sandler Cinematic Universe, season 4 is for the fans, and we're doing Don't Mess with the Zohan in August. Because you asked for it. You, the fans, asked for it.
Man.
Yeah. So I think that's it. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say. Oh, well, yeah, talking about fighting and that. My favorite thing about toxic masculinity and all of that from high school, we were playing cards. We found a folding picnic table in a trash somewhere.
Okay.
And we would set it up in the hallway. There'd be enough room to get by us. We weren't total jerks, right? Like there was a little alcove, so we set it up halfway in there so you could still get by. And we would play cards in the morning. And one morning, someone that we were playing with, one of the people who was at the Portal 2 co-op night, right? I won't name names, but you know who you are if you listen to the show. But let's be honest, you don't listen to the show because I don't think we're friends anymore. Not to be too sad about it, but just like truth coming out. He cheated at cards, and I smacked him, like just full on smacked him. And I did not know a teacher was behind me when I did that. And she came up and she said, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And I'm like, "What?" Because she was a substitute. She was not like faculty on staff. She goes, "Why did you?"
Thus not worthy of any respect.
So no, she'll say fuck is what I'm saying. Faculty members who you're going to see every single day tend not to swear, but this woman, I don't think she really cared about saying fuck before classroom hours. She goes, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" I'm like, "He was cheating." And she goes, "So you slap him?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know." And she's like, "No, if someone cheats at cards, you punch them." And I'm just like, man, 2000s, they were a different time. Huh, Sejan?
I am happy that we are 20 years out from them. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, you and me both, my brother. All right, cool. So anything else you want to add? Oh, we have our very special episode that's dropping later this week. Why don't we tell the people what they can watch if they want to follow along with a very special episode, I think 38?
You would know better than me, man.
Yeah.
You're the one that edits and keeps track of this shit.
Right, but what are we watching for it? You know that.
Oh, I thought you were asking me what number it was.
No. I wanted you to tell the people what they should watch to get ready.
For number 38?
Yes.
I don't know.
It's the Simpsons movie. I told you before we started recording.
That was 2 hours ago.
It was 90 minutes ago. Yeah, so it's the Simpsons movie. Our whole Movies That Built Us has finally got to the Simpsons movie. I can't believe that movie is 15 years old. And also, there have been 15 additional seasons of the Simpsons.
Yeah, that Simpsons is still going.
Yeah. There's been an entire American Dad's worth of Simpsons episodes. It's crazy. It's just an insane sort of thing to think about. So if you do want to catch up and be prepared, it is the Simpsons movie that we're going to be talking about as our July very special episode. I think that covers anything. I think that covers everything that I wanted to get out this week. Anything that you want to add, Jim?
No, there's some crazy stuff going on with Comic-Con and stuff right now.
Oh, right. We didn't... let's brief Comic-Con stuff. We have 8 minutes.
It's not over yet, right?
It's not over, yeah. So I guess we'll give it more there. I didn't miss this, is what I'm going to say on it, right? Just for, briefs. Going on Twitter, and every time I log in, there being, pictures of new toys or new properties or, slight little teasers. I didn't need it in my life, is what I learned after not having San Diego Comic-Con the last 2 years.
Yeah. But we'll talk more about what's actually coming out of it once everything is out of it and things are clearer. There's also been a lot of stuff that I've heard from Twitter and stuff, but I have not seen actual write-ups or actually seen video or pics for myself, and I want to before I make any statements about shit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess for me, I am seeing the stuff. It is toy news and then the pre-orders, and it's not pre-orders of digital render only may differ from final product, where it's these are cast in plastic, probably shipping. I mean, the big one, a Scourge repaint of Laser Optimus Prime went up for pre-order on Thursday, and it will be here August 4th for me.
Nice.
I can't remember the last time I pre-ordered a toy and got it the same year. That's what I'm going to say. I just got Animated Storm, which I pre-ordered in 2021. I don't know. It's crazy. It's just nuts. So yeah, so there's another promise. I'm going to watch Zafar or Phasar, I
believe is what it's called. F-A-Z-Z-A-R, if I'm remembering it correctly.
Phaser,
I'm probably not even getting that right.
Yeah, it happens. Phaser
face? Really?
So we'll have that to talk about. We will try to do a roundup of everything that came out of Comic-Con. That should be fun.
Barzar.
Swifty? Swifty. Sorry, now that word means nothing to me. We'll have those things. And hopefully, you'll all get to celebrate that they finally gave a release date for River City Girls 2.
Yeah.
Because I tempted fate with that. But until next time, if you would like to share your co-op experiences regarding Portal 2, Siegen would love to hear about them. I think he's writing a book or something. He's on Twitter at Siege versus the World.
And if you're a mega fan of River City Underground and that is the only true canon to you, then you can yell at Devon at Devon D. Decker.
Please come. I'd love to have a deep discussion with someone else who's played the game. You're few and far between based on what I found on the internet. All right, so until next time, Will, if you're finished with that feature-length episode of The Orville, please bring us home.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Siegen Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.